Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones, and let the magic begin.
Two Weddings and a Manhunt by Deydralinne, Chapter 10, August 7th, 2003. Golden Girl resorting to old ways? The latest conquest suggests so. It seems Golden Girl Hermione Granger is slipping into old habits. The war heroine made headlines during her time at Hogwarts for many whirlwind relationships that left a string of wizards heartbroken. Some more recognizable among the lists are none other than longtime ally Harry Potter, as well as Quidditch superstars Ronald Weasley and Victor Crumb. Her latest conquest? The sole heir to the Malfoy Empire, Draco Malfoy. Sources claim the witch recently ditched seemingly serious boyfriend Oliver Wood for the Malfoy heir and has already been spotted with a wedding ring attached to her finger. It has left many questioning what possible reason the two have for rushing such a momentous milestone. Sources close to the couple hint that there will be a new addition to the Malfoy family tree in the near future. The prophet approached Mr. Wood for his opinion on his former lover's betrayal, but his only comments revolved around respecting his privacy to recover from this heartbreak. Others have speculated that the new Miss Malfoy may have been more interested in seizing an opportunity to claim some of the Malfoy fortune. It all begs to question how long before Mr. Malfoy is left in the dust, heartbroken too. Hermione's mouth was hanging open after having read the front page of that morning's Daily Prophet. Draco was standing at what he hoped was a safe distance, having already read it to himself. He had a strong suspicion of who tattled to the prophet. "That bitch!" Hermione screamed after she had read it through several times. Papers scattered everywhere as she flung the paper away from her. Draco nodded silently, sipping on his coffee. He wasn't listening as the witch ranted about the factual inaccuracies of her previous relationships and the events surrounding their newfound marriage. 1 week was still new, wasn't it? Especially since their engagement would have been no more than 30 minutes long. They only had themselves to blame. They were supposed to sit down and write out a statement yesterday, but between the muffins and Oliver's inappropriate behavior, they hadn't gotten around to it, and now Oliver had beaten them to it. It was now a matter of damage control rather than story dictation, and it seemed that Rita really had it out for Hermione. I should have left her in a jar for the rest of her bloody life. Draco raised an eyebrow. "Come again?" Blush spread across Hermione's cheeks. "Oh, I may have trapped Rita in a jar for a few months when we were at school, after her series of particularly offensive articles about my supposed promiscuity. She's an animagus. Illegally, but one all the same." Draco exhaled deeply and shook his head. "I don't even know what to say to that, Granger. I won't pretend I'm not pleasantly surprised that you're not a stickler SWAT rule enforcer I thought you were in school." He ducked as she threw a cushion at the back of his head. It collided instead with one of the ornaments on her bookshelf, knocking it over where it fell to the floor and shattered. Draco turned to look at her with a raised eyebrow. "You're rather feisty, you know that." "Would you saw it off? Don't you have a job to go to?" Hermione snarled, waving her wand to repair the broken owl and summoning the cushion. Draco smirked at her. "Don't tell me you're sick of me already, sweet wife. I might begin to suspect the prophet is telling the truth and that I will soon be nursing a broken heart." He chuckled when she flipped him off. "For the record, though, I work from home. Investment portfolios, buying up companies and estates. I haven't heard any mention of your own career. Am I to assume you also don't have a job that you need to rush off to after our first appointment?" "Appointment?" She looked up with confusion. "The mind healer, remember? Merlin, Granger, you were the one who selected the time slot." The manner in which she threw her head back, rolled her eyes, and groaned in annoyance reminded him of a toddler. Feisty and dramatic, Draco decided. 10 minutes of silence had lapsed since their introductions to Healer Thorn. 10 minutes of awkward silence while Hermione sat far from Draco as she could on the sofa. 10 minutes of Healer Thorn looking between them over half-moon spectacles and occasionally nodding at the quick quill scribbling a note on the pad floating in front of her. Draco rolled his eyes and began to look around the room. It was light and airy in here, with lots of green plants. Perhaps the woman before them had once been a Hufflepuff? "Do you feel that is relevant?" she asked him directly, startling him. He frowned at her. Had he spoken out loud? Had Hermione said something he had missed? A smile graced her lips. Ah, I see. You two signed the agreement without reading it. She held them out, each a copy. Highlighted a third of the way down was a sentence that made his blood run cold. Parties agree that whilst present during their sessions, their thoughts will be recorded for the mind healer to maximize positive results. These thoughts will remain confidential to the mind healer. That's insane, Hermione yelled in frustration. Healer Thorn pursed her lips and gave her a knowing look. Yes, I suspect you're probably feeling a bit embarrassed by some of your earlier thoughts, but I assure you, I have taken no offense. You are not truly angry with me after all, Miss Malfoy. I do understand your frustrations. Hermione's face reddened. Healer Thorn turned back to Draco. You didn't answer my question. Do you feel the house I was placed in during my school years is somehow relevant to my ability to assist in your marriage? Draco felt his face growing hot. No, he mumbled. Healer Thorn eyed the top of his head and hummed before nodding at her quill. I mean, it's not relevant to your ability to be a healer, but it would provide some indication of who you are as a person, he said defensively. He hadn't noticed the way she had been looking above their heads before. He glanced at Hermione's head but saw nothing, so he felt he could safely assume Hermione wouldn't see his thoughts either. Correct, Mr. Malfoy, for my eyes only. Can you tell me a little bit about when exactly it became so difficult for you to place your trust in others? She looked at him as if she was asking about the weather. Draco was relieved to see, with a quick glance in Hermione's direction, that she wasn't snickering at him, but instead was looking as horrified as he felt. Interesting. Why is it that you would automatically assume your wife to be amused by your vulnerabilities? Does she have a history of making fun of your self-perceived weaknesses? Hermione's eyes flew to him, wide and confused. Draco just glared at the healer before them and worked meticulously to quiet his mind, shoving his thoughts and memories into boxes and stacking them away out of her reach. She stared at him for a few moments before leaning forward on her knees and looking at him with sincerity. It was aggravating. Mr. Malfoy, I'm not a legilimens. Ovulating isn't going to stop me from seeing your thoughts. I am here to help you both. If at the end of your 52 weeks you both feel that divorce is what you want, then I will submit my approval to do so, which will help greatly in your case. I am not going to do that, however, unless you both participate during these sessions. 1 hour a week for 52 weeks in exchange for my sign-off to the Council of Vows and Bonds. You seem to feel strongly about divorce, so then there should be no harm in participating. You are, after all, not in love with each other, correct? Of course not, Draco spluttered, at the same time as Hermione snapped, absolutely not. Healer Thorn smiled. Fantastic, then. This will be an easy case for all of us, provided you do the work. Now, I would like to touch back on you, Mr. Malfoy. What is it about me that indicates to you that I'm judging you? Is it my tone? Perhaps the way I sit? My very presence? You've decided that I'm here to judge you, and I would like to understand. You are judging us. You've made several remarks on his self-perceived weaknesses. Of course he's going to be defensive, Hermione growled in her direction. Regardless of her attitude, Healer Thorn smiled at Hermione, or rather Hermione's thoughts. Interesting. Miss Malfoy, would you say that you have always been protective over the people in your life? Yes, Hermione stated through gritted teeth. Would you say you've always been this assertive in the conflict of others? Draco huffed in annoyance. That's hardly a fair question to ask her. We haven't exactly had normal childhoods here. She's earned the right to be protective of herself and her friends. Another smile tugged at the healer's lips, causing both Hermione and Draco to scowl at her. You said she earned her right to be protective of herself and her friends. Do you think she considers you a friend? Another look up, another scribble, another analyzing look at Draco, and a quick glance at Hermione. Another scribble. She smiled back at the scowling pair. What's most interesting to me is, despite your insistence on not being a couple, you're both instinctively protective of each other, despite the shared belief that the other person doesn't consider you a friend. Why do you think that is? Are you serious right now? Why do you think that is, Doc? Hermione snapped. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the fact that we were children, literal children, assigned sides and forced to fight in a war that started before any of us were even born. I know the family life Draco grew up with. He's been judged enough for the actions of his father, and he doesn't need you picking at insecurities that we all have. That war was fucking traumatic. At the end of it, regardless of what side we had been on, we came out of it with the same scars and the same horrible memories and the same stolen childhoods. Silence fell again while Healer Thorn made more notes. 5 minutes of silence in which Draco glared at the healer. Suddenly, the pad popped out of existence. That's a good start, I think. I can tell you're both reaching your breaking points, so we will call it an early day for this week. Normally, I would assign homework for the date nights to rekindle some level of intimacy, but since you two were not in a romantic relationship prior to your nuptials, I'm instead going to assign you the task of becoming friends by the end of this year. Hang out with each other, figure out what makes each other laugh, what your favorite foods are, maybe share a meal with other friends. Up to you, but do something between now and next week. Good job, you two. Despite how you're both feeling, you've made amazing progress today. Draco and Hermione did not share the same enthusiasm.